Hey guys, so I am back. If you guys haven't seen my previous videos, check out my channel below. I talked about how I started dating my toxic boyfriend. It's 3 parts. There's part 1, part 2, part 3, and yeah, I'm just gonna continue from there. So anyway, that's how I started, kind of dating him. Like I said in the previous video, I was he asked me to be friends with benefits, and I said no at first. And then I thought about it. I was like, I could do it, like dick has been dry lately, so like I can find someone new. And I asked T if it was okay for like 3 days straight, and she was just like, yo dude, I keep telling you I'm fine, it's perfectly fine. And she's like, dude, if you don't text him, I'm gonna text him for you. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm telling you, I'm going to do it. Like I didn't want her to not know, or for it not to be okay. I kept telling her, I'm like, dude, if you have an issue, tell me, because I won't do it. Like, he's not important, you're important. So she was fine with it, and obviously we're still friends today, so obviously it was fine. But she was fine with it. I asked her again, kept asking her, and she kept saying yeah, it was fine. So I texted him, and he was like, oh, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah. And I was like, I'm sorry, I had to just make sure it was okay with T. And he was like, oh, okay. And he was like, oh, did you text Taylor and ask her? And I was like, no, fuck her. Like, I'm not gonna tell her shit. She didn't have an issue when T was dating you to fuck you, so fuck her. And he started laughing. He was like, oh, you're a savage, Vanessa, or whatever. So anyway, we started doing it for a while. We texting here and there, blah blah blah, fucking texting. Like, we were doing our own thing, chilling for a while. So one day, right, it's been about like a month or 2 months or whatever of us doing that. And one day I was in class, and he's older, so he's not in class. He's not in school anymore with us. So I was in class, and I texted him. I was like, hey, what are you up to? You wanna hang out later? You wanna fuck later? And he was like, yeah, sure, but I gotta do something later, so I gotta do something, so let me see you later. Not like after school, like 3 o'clock. Like, he's like, let me meet you like around 10, right? So I'm like, okay, that's fine. So anyway, I go, and this is second period that I texted him that, and we're texting still or whatever. Anyway, I'm in third period with Taylor now. Taylor comes up to me. I was like, oh, Vanessa, I'm gonna tell you something. And I was like, oh, what's up? And she's like, oh, Brian and I got back together a couple weeks ago, and I just, I didn't know if it was, I didn't want to tell you yet or whatever, but yeah, we got together. And I'm like, she's like, I didn't tell anybody, but we're together for a while now, so a couple weeks, so I'm ready to tell people. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean that you and Brian are back together? Like, I was so pissed, because he literally told me that he had to do something earlier, right? And she goes and she tells me, she's like, yeah, we're back together. Like, we're gonna go out tonight, and da-da-da. Oh, that's why you had to, you had to see me later. Like, you were literally about to go out on a date with your girl and then come to my house and fuck me. Like, what type of bullshit was that? I was so pissed. I texted Brian right away. I was like, you are a piece of shit, bro. He's like, what happened, babe? Like, what's wrong? Like, what did I do? And I'm like, you really think I wasn't gonna find out? I'm literally friends with Taylor. Like, what the fuck are you saying? She's like, what? I'm like, Taylor's right now. I'm in class with Taylor right now, and she's telling me that you guys have been dating for a couple weeks. Oh, we weren't really dating. It wasn't anything serious. Like, we were just hanging out or whatever. I'm like, regardless, you know that she's my friend. Like, why wouldn't you say something to me? Like, you're a piece of shit. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, dude, like, he's like, oh, don't tell her, though. And this, I was like, I'm not. Like, fuck it, whatever. I'm not. But this is over. This is done with, right? And he's like, oh, you know, like, it's not serious or whatever. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. Regardless. Like, it's done. It's over with. And he's like, okay, are you mad, though? And I'm like, nope, I'm not that mad. I'm over it. So that was kind of the end of that shit. And I was, like, over him. Like, I was done. Like, I started doing my own thing again. He kept texting me, trying to talk to me, and I kept dubbing him and trying to, like, get back. Not, like, get back at him, but, like, kind of, like, be, like, low-key, like, go, like, if he's, like, oh, asks me something, I'd be, like, ask your girl, or, whatever. Like, I was, like, really cold to him. And that happened for a couple. And then, one day, you know, I'm hanging out with Taylor still, or whatever. So, one day, Taylor and I were hanging out, and Brian called her, and she didn't answer. He was like, oh, he's so annoying. And I was like, whatever. And I'm like, that's weird. Like, why wouldn't you answer your boyfriend or whatever? So anyway, I go and I keep hanging out with Taylor because, you know, she's my friend or whatever. And all the time, like, she kept, like not answering his calls or texts or whatever, and, like, saying that he's annoying and stuff. And one day, we were with her friend, another friend, and we were hanging out, and he did the same thing. And she was like, oh, he's so annoying or whatever. And her friend was like, dude, you shouldn't do that, because, like, he's probably gonna find someone else that is not gonna do that. He's probably gonna break up with you if you keep doing that. She's like, no, it's fine, or whatever. So then as soon as he called her, and, like, she didn't answer, he calls me, and I don't answer, and I'm like, oh my God, like, bro, like, what are you doing? And then he texted me. He was like, oh my God, I don't understand why you don't want to talk to me anymore, and blah, blah, blah. Like, I thought we were still friends and all of this shit. I'm like, dude. I texted him. I'm like, dude, I'm with Taylor right now. Like, I can't talk to you. And he's like, oh, okay, just call me when you're done with her and whatever. And I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. And, so later that day, I call him, and I'm like, what do you want? Like, and he's like, oh, I hate when that you're mad at me and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, it's been a couple weeks. I'm just like, I don't want to kind of disrespect Taylor by, like, you know, saying some shit. Like, I was telling him that. Like, I don't want to be like, you know, we're flirty with each other and things like that. Like, he was still trying to be flirty with me. Like, you know, ooh, like, if I said I was, like, going out somewhere or whatever, he'd be like, ooh, wear that sexy shirt that I like. And I'm like, dude, you can't do that, because you have a girlfriend now, and that girlfriend is my friend. So I can't, you know, have that dynamic with you anymore. So I just decide just to cut it off. And he is like, oh, I get it, but, you know, like, I just miss you. I miss you so much. And I'm like, dude, well, you know, you should have never been so grimy and, like, so fucking, like, sneaky. And he's like, oh, I know I fucked up or whatever, but, like, let's just work on our relationship. And I'm like, that's fine. It's fine. I'll start texting you more. Just please stop. Like, don't do anything uncomfortable like that, because I don't want her to go and say that I'm, like, stealing her boyfriend or whatever. And she's like, okay, I get it. And so I was like, all right, we can start texting a little more or whatever. And he was like, okay, so what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm not really doing anything. And he's like, oh, do you want to hang out? And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I really shouldn't, but I'm like, okay, yeah, we can hang out. So anyways, stay for part 2 of this video.